Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 81. In this episode, I speak with actress and artist Brittnee Garza. I met Brittnee out here in Los Angeles, and it was a lot of fun having her on the podcast tonight. She has a really cool story, and I'm excited for you to hear it. The book of the episode is going to be The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I read this one a long time ago, and this was actually a last-minute pick for book of the episode because it came up in Brittnee and I's conversation. And it's just a really great book to dive into if you're an artist, but even if you're not an artist and just want to get in touch with your inner creativity. She lays out a lot of cool different exercises you can do over 12 weeks. Again, it's called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. If you want to listen to the podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to watch the podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. Here's my conversation with Brittnee. Well, that just isn't Coca-Cola. Tell us what you're drinking there.
Coke Zero.
So that was interesting. First of all, thank you for offering to pick us up something.
You're welcome.
And when you said you were getting Coke Zero, I'm like, that's an interesting choice. Like Coke, you don't hear that every day. You know, Coke or Pepsi,
I say it every day.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought twice that like Coke or Pepsi be like Coke Zero. So how have you been drinking Coke Zero for a long time, or is this?
I've never really put any thought into it. You're the first person to ask me. You know, I went years without drinking soda, and I don't really like to drink my calories. I try to stick to water, coffee. Mm-hmm. If I add sweetener, it's sugar-free. So if I'm drinking soda, it's sugar-free, 0 calorie, 0 sugar. That's pretty much it. And I like how it tastes better than Diet Coke. I don't actually know what the difference is between Coke Zero and Diet Coke. I've never
because they both have 0 calories.
Correct. They must have different ingredients, otherwise, unless it's just a scam, a marketing scam.
They are good at marketing, so
that who knows?
That would make sense. Well, and on that note, Brittnee Garza, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Sam Dever. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. I know this has been in the works for more than when we had talked a month ago. I know I had like, how it usually works is like you're outside of it. Yeah, you should come on and you should come on and you should come on. I'm like, oh yeah, now we actually have to go do this and book all these people. But I'm a believer things happen when they're supposed to happen. And in this one was supposed to happen tonight. So
yeah,
thank you for making
so excited.
Time.
And you started this during the shutdown, didn't you?
Yes, good memory. Yeah.
Because I remember seeing your posts and I thought to myself, good for him for making stuff happen. Because during that time, it was kind of all you could do was find your own ways to stay creative. And here you are in your at-home setup, staying creative. And how many years later now? 4?
It will be for the podcast. It's been over 3 for the podcast.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I started it within the pandemic, and then I had the major leg injury that happened. So that derailed it for like 9 months. But then started coming back with doing it on Zoom. And then I already knew him, but Eric and I combined forces.
Yay!
Which, by the way, Eric, say hello to everyone.
Hello. I was looking up the difference between Coke Zero and Diet Coke, and it appears to be like just the sweeteners and special ingredients. And like Coke Zero was a big hit with the millennials because it got introduced in 2005 when they were like young, and yeah, so just different sweeteners. And by the way, hello, welcome.
Hi, I love this. Is this new?
You're the first one. I forgot to even mention. Yeah, Eric now officially has a mic on this podcast.
I'm just gonna be chiming in whenever I please.
Is there a camera on you too?
No camera.
No.
Which I think we'll have to move up to that.
I saw Kenny whip out his camera, and I really liked that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to have mine on standby a little.
Yeah.
A little over the shoulder.
You just totally pulled like a young Jamie, like Rogan does on his podcast.
Yeah, he's like the one that does that. Yeah.
I love that. Good for you guys. I'm happy you're here, Eric.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
The man that makes it happen.
Well, we're happy you're here. I remember when I guess we could start there. Back to the podcast real quick. It's been over 3 years, and I was going to say about that time. I was just thinking about this. It'll be 4 years ago here coming up soon that all that happened. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like 4 years.
It doesn't feel like that long at all.
It's nuts.
Mm-mm.
What did you do to stay creative during that time? Do you remember?
I do. I was in a funny place during the pandemic because in October of 2019, I had also had a leg injury. fell performing on stilts and tore my ACL. And it was a work comp situation. It took, I forget how many months, 9 months, I think, to get surgery approved. And then I finally had the surgery that following August. And it took another however many months to recover. So for about a year and a half, I was out of commission, but it happened right as the pandemic was going on. So I didn't really miss out on that many opportunities because I was injured while everyone was at home. So I was healing while everyone was stuck at home. And it kind of was eye-opening. It was actually what led to me starting my acting training at Playhouse West, because I've always been an actor, and I've been very lucky to have a lot of really cool opportunities in acting. And I've performed at theme parks. I performed as a stilt walker. So I've always kind of, scratched that itch, so to speak. But it wasn't until I took a fall performing on stilts and realized that I can't necessarily perform on stilts forever. And I'm just one injury away from never being able to again. And so I went and took my first beginner acting class at Playhouse West. And that was when I really started training as an actor. And so, I was there for, I guess, about 4 to 5 months before everything shut down. And then we were doing online classes. I took screenwriting with Doug Van Beber, and I took Wolf Bodison's monologue class. And in the meantime, I finally started conceptualizing these, how would you say, these shows that I had always wanted to do that combined stilt walking with dance and roller skates. And I had never done it before, but now here I was in a point where I couldn't perform it, but I could create it. And so for the first time, I directed and produced my own live specialty performance project. And so that was kind of my big pandemic project, was creating Chaotic Motion, which is now my live entertainment company. And we created a Christmas candy show, naively thinking that by Christmas 2020, the world would be open again and people would just be thirsty for entertainment after being in lockdown for a few months. And obviously, we all know how that went. But, we got it made, and we did all of the production. We had our safety protocols. We wore our masks. We got a studio. We filmed. A group of friends came together. My friend Brittnee Sinift, her mom is an amazing seamstress. She actually just took over a wedding dress shop. So she now has her own company. She designs and tailors wedding gowns, and she's done dance costumes over the years. So she also, having not much to do during the pandemic, helped us make our costumes. And it was just such a culmination of, honestly, the perfect timing, with everybody kind of being down and needing something to do. And we're all in each other's bubble anyway, so why not create something together? And we did. So.
And I've seen some really cool highlights I've just through the gram.
Through the gram.
Yeah, and the things you post, it's so creative.
Thank you.
It's like, and I was going to ask you, so what led you to the stilts, doing the stilts? Because that was like the beginning of all this, right? To lead to creating this company and these big productions. How did it all start for you?
So I began stilt walking back in 2009. I was like 10 years old or something. No, but I was working at Disneyland, and I was working in the character department at the time, but I really wanted to do parades. And I had auditioned for every parade audition that they had since I had moved to California. And oftentimes I would make it to the end of the audition, but I would never get the call. I just wasn't quite a strong enough dancer. And I befriended a fellow named Brett Horn, who would eventually become my stilt mentor. And he was a very good friend of mine who encouraged me to audition for stilts in this new show that they were bringing called Celebrate a Street Party. And they needed, I think it was 6 male and 6 female stilt walkers per day for this show. It was this big street party. And so they had auditions, no experience necessary. They did a movement evaluation, and if you made it past that, you got to get up on stilts and kind of walk around with a trainer. And I don't know, I guess they were just looking to see if you seemed trainable, if you didn't seem scared. And I ended up finding out that day that I got the part. So that was my first role in a parade at Disneyland, which was something I had always wanted to do. And at the time, I thought it was just going to be a foot in the door so that I could be known by casting and do the things I really wanted to do, like be a princess and a dancer, But I ended up falling in love with stilts. I've actually never taken to anything as naturally as I did with stilt walking. So I got very good very quickly, and you're kind of forced to when you're dancing on stilts in a parade at Disneyland. But yeah, it just led to so many opportunities over the years.
I do have to say one thing about Disneyland. It really is an amazing experience going. My girlfriend took me for my birthday a couple years ago, and I'm thinking, okay, this might be cool. But then you're there and you're just seeing the energy, and yeah, it's pretty cool. I'll never ride Space Mountain ever again.
Why?
Oh, it was awful. It was.
You didn't like it?
I went to Disney World when I was young, and I loved it. But oh my gosh, it tore me to pieces. Like I cannot go on that ride.
Just being in the dark in the roller coaster?
It's just pitch black, and it's just like vroom, vroom. It's so like jerky, and I'm just like, I think my head's gonna go. Like,
I know what you mean. Yeah, you can kind of see the outlines of the tracks above you, and you're like, oh gosh, am I gonna die?
Can you guess my favorite one? My favorite ride there?
Ooh, can I guess? Should I know this? You seem confident that I could guess.
Yeah, like you said. That's
Give me a hint. Which land is it in?
It's something that's not turbulent, and
it's a small world.
There you go. I just thought it was the most grand production I had ever seen.
It is the most grand production.
They're singing from all over the world, and I just get to sit back on the boat, and it was great.
It's so cute. It's like a giant living diorama that you get to glide through.
Diorama, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
It's so fun. I love It's a Small World.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something special about Disney, I have to say. I mean, Walt really set something in motion when he opened up that place, because other theme parks, I've been very proud to work in a lot of different theme parks, and they all have their strengths. But Disney really they can immerse you like no other park has seemed to be able to. And it's so magical. The feeling you get when you watch a parade, go down Main Street, or you watch the fireworks, or you go through It's a Small World. Speaking of which, did you see that video of the guy that went streaking through It's a Small World?
No.
You gotta look it up, folks. There was a man who I want to say was on drugs, but there are videos of him. He climbed into It's a Small World. It was the only attraction at the time. I don't think it had any cameras inside. That was kind of something like everybody knew that worked there. I assume that's changed now.
Yeah.
But a man climbed into It's a Small World, and he was just walking around with all the dolls naked. And they had to shut down the ride, and the cops had to go in and get him and put like a blanket over him and carry him out of Disneyland. There's videos of it. Pretty recent, like within the last month or two. Yeah. Yeah, it was within the last few months. You gotta look it up. Oh, it's gold. It doesn't show anything. Everything's blurred out, but it's just insane that happened.
Wow, of all the places.
Bizarre.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just hope not too many people witness that, but probably
I think a lot of kids. There were a lot of innuendo jokes, Mitch is a small world. That cracked me up. I can't believe that happened. You just never know. Even Disneyland is not precious these days.
If someone's watching on YouTube right now, they're literally pausing this and they're opening up a new browser.
I'm so sorry if I just sent people away from
we just lost our viewership.
It's okay. You can edit this part out.
Well, it makes sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you being in that, and I want to talk more about the stilts. You being in that environment of those parades, because there's such an artistic performance happens in those. I mean, it makes sense that eventually it led you to now you're doing would you have ever guessed that you would be doing your own company now?
I mean, I know that back when I was performing at Disney, I wanted to.
Okay.
I started this idea back then. I remember I was trying to think of a name for what my company would ultimately be, because I also learned how to roller skate at Disneyland because I wanted to audition to be a snowflake in the parade, in the Christmas parade. And I guess that was kind of the thing. At Disney, I learned You know that kind of saying that like big fish, small pond, like we all come from our hometown and we're stars in our hometowns. We're the best where we come from. And then we come to LA and we're with all of the best from everywhere.
Go get in line. Yeah.
I'm no longer the best, let me tell you that. And so I started auditioning for these parades and I started to realize I had never even known how lacking I was in skill. I wasn't lacking in ambition or drive or like a pure want to give something special to the team, but I was lacking in technique. And so that led me to getting to learn these other skills that maybe weren't as popular at the time. Like back when I first started stilt walking, there were not that many stilt walkers, especially female stilt walkers. Now they're kind of a dime a dozen, still not like actors or dancers, but our world has expanded. And same with roller skaters. Roller skating is making a comeback. And now I will say I suck as a skater compared to a lot of the people that have stayed with it all these years. But back when I was learning, I thought it's so cool that Disney has stilts in their parades. I really liked that they had us doing some of the same choreography on stilts that the dancers were doing at the same time. I just think that looks so cool. And then I learned roller skating and I thought, what if there were skaters skating around too? And I knew that one day I wanted to make a show that combined everything. And I've finally done it. And I'm very excited about that. And I think it does make sense looking back on performing at Disney, but also growing up as a kid, going to Disneyland. I had, like many of us, I had a hard childhood. And going to Disneyland was such an escape. And I remember seeing the Lion King parade. And I remember seeing the Parade of the Stars, which my all-time favorite character, Robin Hood, was in. And in this parade, let me tell you, Sam, the Parade of Stars, they had this group of performers that would go through the park before the parade started, and they would find guests and ask them, do you want to be in the parade today? And you would say, yes, I do. And they pick you and you get to go on this double-decker bus and they drive you backstage and they teach you a little dance. And then you got to be in the parade.
Oh my gosh.
And so my brothers and I, we used to eat that up. Like we would go and find them. We would wait for them every day. We became the regulars, the annoying little kids that I'm sure they saw us coming. They're like, oh, here come the Garza kids again. But it was so special for us. It was so exciting. We had our favorite ones. There was this guy, Michael. We loved Michael. He was always so kind to us and he would always let us be in the parade. And I just remember how special it made me feel and how happy I was when I was there. And that is so true still for the thousands of people that are there, causing the 3 and 4 hour waits for lines every single day. Everybody wants to go to Disneyland. It brings joy. It really does.
So you were destined for Disney.
I was destined.
Yeah. Okay. Now I want to take it back a little bit. So before I forget this question, when you got assigned to the Stilts, how long was your training?
It's a good question. It was a few weeks.
I was going to say, because they just can't say, hey, here's a couple of stilts, go figure it out.
Correct. I don't remember exactly how many training days we had, how many rehearsals, but I know it was over the course of a few weeks. I do remember the first time I put the costume on with the stilts, I thought there's no way I can do this because that costume was insanely heavy. I don't think I even realized how horrible it was for stilt walkers at the time because I had nothing to compare it to. But looking back on it, every costume I've worn since then has been chef's kiss, easy, But that one was so heavy. And I remember trying to stand up off the stilt bench. You get up, they build a special bench for you, you stilt up, you put your costume on, and it had these 3 layers, these tiers that the costumers would come and help you clip each tier onto the tier above it. So you have these giant hoops with all of this fabric confetti hanging from your legs. And then it's so heavy that it's kind of stretching out the crotch of the costume. So you're like a penguin walking in these heavy legs. And there was a time I didn't think I could do it. I had a moment where I went, ooh, what have I agreed to?
Sounds very difficult.
It was hard at
You
first.
describe it in great detail. So I'm trying to picture, well, especially now with my layout, like, oh yeah, that's not going to work for me now. But
oh, I know, right? Yeah, no, it was hard. But yeah, we had some training where all it was stilt focused training. and we learned the basics. And we just would walk around backstage, just walk around, get comfortable walking around, get comfortable with basic things like little pivot turns. And then eventually they started teaching us choreography, and we joined the rest of the performers, the characters, and the dancers. And we would all do big group rehearsals. And the coolest part was getting to go into Disneyland after the park was closed for the first time ever.
Whoa.
And yeah, it's after the park is closed is when we do our rehearsals on the street, because of course we have to wait until it's empty. So you're in the park overnight, and it's just quiet and dark and glowing, and you're doing the parade for, custodial or whoever's in the park at that time, cast member wise. But it was really cool. It was really special. Good experience.
Are you a Star Wars fan?
No, actually, I'm not. I have seen the Star Wars movies when I was a kid, but I don't really remember them. I need to rewatch them.
Because the Galaxy Edge, the Rise of the Resistance ride, is the best ride. So aside from Small World,
I was just gonna say, actually, that sounds like your favorite.
Let me. So I consider Galaxy's Edge like a separate. It's the same, but it's not. It's like
fair enough.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like
it's not the traditional
classic Disney. Correct.
I got another one I'm going to put on blast. What's it called? The Swiss Alps one.
The Matterhorn.
Yeah, man.
It's cool,
that ride,
right?
I kid you not. So we get in, and it's already like, I'm like, I think I'm kind of too big for whatever I was getting in. And the bar wouldn't come down. And you hear this like Swiss Alps accent, like, y'all,
Yeah.
get ready to go on the. And I'm just like, no, wait, my bar's not coming down. And that and the Goofy ride. The Goofy ride, I'm going around, and I feel like I'm going to flip out of that car on the Goofy
Was that
ride.
in,
He's like, yuk, California Adventure.
California Adventure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean,
Yeah, those-
it's
I know what you're talking about. You're going toward that turn, and it just looks like you're gonna keep going forward.
I think this thing's going to go off the rails. But
That's a scary ride.
and then
It's a kid ride, but it's a scary ride.
But those just came to mind as we're talking. But I want to take it back even further. So you're from Seattle.
I'm from Seattle. Yes.
Seattle, Washington. That's a cool city. I've only been there once, but it was cool it's been over a decade ago. But I went to the Gum Wall.
You got to go to the Gum Wall.
I went to the
Pike
Gum Wall and the Space Needle. It's like, okay.
Did you go up into the Space Needle or just go and look at it?
Wow, that's a great question. Did I go up in the Space Needle? I think I did. I want to say I did. Yeah. I was there for a work training of some kind back then. And yeah, it was, it rained a lot.
Makes sense.
When we were,
Makes sense.
It was like November.
Yeah. Winter in Seattle is pretty gloomy, but summer in Seattle, there's nothing like it. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Because it rains most of the year, everything is so lush and the skies are so clear. You see the city, the Puget Sound, the snow-capped mountain behind it. It's just the most stunning city. Definitely a vibrant place to grow up, I would say.
Okay. So it was a good experience for you there?
It was. It was. I loved Seattle. I went to a very unique high school. You actually mentioned the Space Needle. And that campus where the Space Needle is located, it's called the Seattle Center. And in the food court upstairs above the restaurants is a little high school. It's a little art school called the Center School. And that is where I went to high school. Small school, about 300 students.
Wait, it's by the Space Needle?
Right at the Space Needle. Yeah, like you walk out of the building and the Space Needle's right there.
Wow.
So I could have lunch in the shadow of the Space Needle, literally.
That's pretty cool.
It was really cool. And we got to do our spring drama intensive with the Seattle Repertory Theater. So the actual Seattle Repertory Theater, we would work with teaching artists there, and they would write an original play. We would audition. We would get to do the play in the theater in this professional space, this renowned theater in Seattle. It was so cool. It was really cool. There were honestly a lot of things I didn't like about going to the school. I feel like I missed out on some of the high school experiences because we didn't have sports and such. So we didn't have school pep rallies and spirit weeks and things like that. I tried to implement some of that when I was like a senior because I felt like I missed out. So I didn't want the kids coming in to miss out. So I tried to start some of those clubs and stuff. But all things considered, it was so cool to go to this one of a kind kind of art school where we got to work with the Seattle Repertory Theater.
I had no idea that existed till you just.
Nobody does. Nobody does. It's such a little Yeah.
That's
little
what a
hidden
gift,
gem.
though. What a gift to have, and
Very
especially you as
cool.
an artist. I mean, can
Yeah.
you imagine like a better environment to be in?
Totally. I mean, we felt very independent, I think. I guess I have nothing to compare it to since I didn't go to a quote unquote regular high school, but we, we would have our lunch down in the food court where tourists are coming and going. So it wasn't like we were only with our classmates all day. We could go out at lunchtime and explore with other people. It was very unique.
Is that right by the water? The Space Needle? Is it far from the water?
No, it's not far from the water
No.
at all. The whole city kind of sits
It's
right
right
on
there,
the,
right? Yeah.
And now probably, I don't know, since you've been there. Do you remember if the Ferris wheel was there
I
on the
have
pier
I
when
don't
you went?
remember that part. Yeah, it was
'Cause-
raining a lot that night. We had gone downtown.
I can't remember what year they built it, but after I moved away, after high school, they built a huge Ferris wheel right on the pier, and it's so fun to go and like ride it at sunset, and it's just right on the water. I mean, literally, you go up and over, and there's the water down there.
Yeah, I was listening to a Jeff Bezos interview. He was talking about Seattle, and obviously Amazon, Microsoft, like all these huge, just mega companies are up there. So I mean, they're up there for a reason. Like it must be nice,
Yeah.
outside winter conditions.
Outside of that, I mean, it is a beautiful state.
Yeah.
I mean, the Pacific Northwest in general
Washington,
is,
Oregon,
yeah,
all of that.
it's gorgeous.
So what did you always know you wanted to come to Los Angeles? So what take me from there, Seattle? What made you leave? What?
Yeah, I mean, I always did. I always knew I wanted to be an actor. I never really had a plan B. And so my plan at the time when I was designing my life as a, worldly high schooler, knowing everything, I planned to move to California, be a Disney princess, go to Cal State Fullerton, and then be a famous actor. Like that was exactly how it was going to happen.
Just like that. Yeah.
And so right after high school, first of all, I only applied for 2 colleges. I ended up getting horrible grades in high school, which everybody in my family was shocked by because I was the smart one of the family. But we just had a rough go of it the last few years of high school, and my grades plummeted. I didn't have the worst GPA, but I didn't have the best. And I just never really got around to applying to schools. And the only 2 schools I applied to were Chapman University and USC, because I thought, you know what? They're going to read my essay and they're just going to think her grades are bad, but she's special. We need to admit
come
her.
on down. Yeah.
So I received a rejection letter from USC, but I never heard back from Chapman. So to this day, I like to think that my acceptance letter just got lost in the mail. You never know. But so I never went to college. And a couple months after graduation, my mom discovered the Disneyland audition website and she showed it to me. And so I basically on a whim moved to California. I think my family as a whole, like my mother had, I think, $200 in her bank account and she gave it to me. We were living with my grandpa at the time. So she gave me all the money she had to basically be like, here, go, try it out. And I stayed with an acquaintance of hers in his spare room while I auditioned to be a quote unquote very good friend of any of the face characters, the princesses and such. And I got cut right away at the audition and quickly learned that this just wasn't going to go how I had planned. And I eventually hired in a few weeks later as a character host, which are basically the people that go around with the characters and help facilitate the meet and greets with the guests and the characters. And then about 6 months after that, I went to an audition and I got to start, quote unquote, hanging out with more of the characters. I became very good friends with Pluto and Eeyore and Rafiki from The Lion King. And then it was shortly after that that I started doing parades. So I kind of just dove in. Is that the way to phrase it? I dove into theme park entertainment, and that's been my bread and butter ever since. To this day, I'm still performing at theme parks.
First of all, you got an amazing story. Like I knew none of that. I mean, so you're like right after high school.
Yeah, man.
Literally went all in going to LA.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, I mean, it's so hard, because you think like sitting here in this setting, I'm like, how much of the story do I tell? But there were some serendipitous things
Right.
that had happened leading up to this.
You can, but if any serendipity, spirituality, universal things, this is the spot. If you want to share that,
Well, so leading up to moving to California, I mentioned that the high school I went to didn't have sports. Well, my junior year, I ended up going and trying out for cheer at one of the other high schools because we were allowed to try out for sports at other schools since we didn't have sports at our school. And I made that cheer team. So my senior year, I did varsity cheer for 1 year. And by the way, fell in love with that, wished so badly that I had done it more than 1 year. But that year, we ended up flying down to Anaheim for nationals. So this was in 2007. And while my team flew down to Anaheim for cheer nationals. And while we were here, we went to Disneyland, of course. And I got this light up, sparkly princess crown. A friend actually got it for me because I saw it and I really liked it, but it was too expensive or something. So her mom was one of the chaperones and she bought it for me, I think as a birthday gift. So I got this crown and I was wearing it on the flight home. At one point, one of the flight attendants comes up to me and he says, "Hey, that flight attendant over there loves your crown. She's willing to pay you $50 for it. Will you let her buy it off of you?" And I was like, it was a gift. I can't sell it, but if she wants to wear it for the flight, she can. And so he went and told her and she said, "Deal." So I went and I took off the crown. I put it on her head. We made a little bit of it. The entire flight wore this princess light up sparkly crown. So then at the end of the flight, she came to give it back to me and I told her, "Hey, my plan is to move to California, hopefully work at Disneyland. If that happens and I can get you one of these crowns, I would love to send it to you. Like, could I have your email address or keep in touch?" She said, "Yes, that would be amazing. In fact, when the time comes and you're ready to move, if you need a flight, let me know and I can give you one of my standby flights." So then fast forward to my mom finding the website. We found this audition. We have no money for me to move to California, but I reached out to this flight attendant who I had met, who liked my light up princess crown from Disneyland, and she gave me and my mom a free flight. So my mom was able to fly down with me, kind of help me get settled, and fly back for free. And all of this was just because I let a nice flight attendant wear my princess crown. Like, it's just such a funny story looking back, how that all worked out.
That's incredible. Like you were, it was almost like the universe was guiding you and in bringing the right
Yeah.
people you needed to make this happen.
It was meant to happen.
you know?
Mhm.
Wow, that's really cool. Like, it's not just, it's one thing if someone grew up out here and they live next to Disney and like, oh, let me just go apply for a job while I go to school. It's like, no, you gave up everything and came here
Mhm.
to just go work there. And now you're still in a career that you're flourishing in and have your own company. And, you're in this world. You're a part of this world
Yeah.
in a
It's
significant
as
way.
Ariel sings. Yeah, it's been really cool. And I've made so many of my best friends working at theme parks. And even currently, I mean, some of my closest friends, my friend, shout out Sarah Palmer. She just started working with Me TV. There's a show called Svengoolie. He's this horror host that's been around for years. It's one of those late night shows that plays like old horror movies. And she just booked that show. She's now a horror hostess on this show. She's flying out to Chicago once a month to film, and I work at Universal with her. Another friend of mine, Alicia, has portrayed Marilyn Monroe in American Horror Story, and she's done a ton of stuff on film and TV. My friend Emily and her sister are pitching a show right now. They just created a proof of concept for it. So all of these people are quote unquote just theme park performers, but they're really not. I mean, we're so lucky to get to be creative as our day job and meet other people that are staying creative and getting all these cool opportunities and kind of root each other on, In fact, did I tell you in the email that you didn't see?
I read right before we.
Yes. My first ever network audition came from meeting someone through performing at Disneyland. And I want to tell that story because that's a cool story.
Please do.
So, to To me, this is an example of why you should always be doing your best no matter what, because you don't know who's watching. And when I was performing stilts in Celebrate, as I had said before, it was so meaningful to me because I had been auditioning over and over again. And I finally got this spot in this parade and I was really giving it my all. And I remember back then feeling a little jealous, a little envious sometimes of some of the dancers because they were doing the spot that I had originally wanted to be doing. I originally didn't set out to be a stilt walker. I wanted to be a dancer. And I would see sometimes people maybe phoning it in a little bit. They're doing the dance, they're smiling, but you just see that they're not connecting with the audience or they're not connecting with the other performers. And that was something that I always felt like maybe what I lacked in technique, I made up for in showmanship, so to speak. I worked really hard to be the best stilt walker that I could be since that was the opportunity I was being given. And I was learning tricks. We had this section where we were allowed to freestyle, and most of us were new stilt walkers, so we couldn't do much at first, but I worked really hard to learn tricks that I could do during the freestyle section. Well, the way this particular show worked, we would parade out and stop 3 times along the parade route and do a 15-minute show. So we'd parade, stop, perform the show, parade, stop, perform the show, etc. I started to notice that every Sunday there was this couple that I would always see sitting in the same spot, and they were so fun. They were just youthful and energetic, and there were guest participation moments where we'd pull guests out and they would conga with us, and this grown couple would partake in it all. They just looked so joyful. And I started to see them frequently, so I would always go up and high-five them and, hey, welcome back, good to see you again. One day I go and I high-five them, and they said to me, we love watching you. We sit here so we can watch you. You're our favorite one. You do so much more than everybody else. And that meant so much to me because I had worked so hard. And I remember calling my mom afterward and telling her what this nice couple said. So time went on. I would see them watching the show here and there. Months probably went by. And then I was in the park in the evening one time for their Halloween event that they do. It's like a separate ticketed event. And as cast members, we can't even go for free. But we had friends in town from Seattle visiting, and they wanted to take their son. So we all got tickets, and we went this one night. And while we were in that night, I saw the couple who had also gotten tickets for that same night. And I saw them. He was dressed up as Mr. Incredible, and she was dressed up as Tinkerbell. And I went, I think that's the couple that always watches my section. And I debated whether or not to say hi because part of me wanted to keep that professional distance and just kind of be this performer that they don't know. But I saw them a second time later in the night. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go up and introduce myself. So I did. I went up. I was like, hey, I don't know if you recognize me without blue eyebrows, but I'm Brittnee. I do the stilts in the parade. And they were like, oh my gosh, we love you. Can we have your email address? We have so many photos we want to send you. So we exchanged information. They sent me photos. Another several months go by. They come and watch me in the Christmas parade. We've become cordial friends at this point. One night, my family, we all meet up to go into the cast member preview of World of Color. So whatever year that was that this opened, I want to say 2010 maybe. And we met up with these new friends of mine. Billy and Cherie are their names. And so my family and Billy and Cherie were all in at this cast member preview to watch the World of Color. And he starts asking my brothers and I questions about ourselves and what we want to do, what our goals are. I'm talking about acting. And my brother Stefan says, I really want to produce and direct films. And Billy goes, oh, that's what I do. I'm a director. And I remember kind of thinking to myself, cool, like what does he direct? Student films, good for you. And then he goes, have you ever heard of Sons of Anarchy?
Huh.
And, yeah, exactly. And we go,
love that show.
Yeah. So he was one of the directors of Sons of Anarchy and The Walking Dead.
Oh.
And yes, a huge freaking director in TV. And I had just, unbeknownst to me, I had been friends with this guy and his wonderful wife, who is now a director as well, for a year at least. And I never even knew it. Never even knew it. And so long story short, Billy ended up getting me my first ever audition for a co-star on Torchwood. Torchwood Miracle Day, which was on Stars. It was a spinoff of Doctor Who. And I didn't have an agent. I didn't even know how to read a call sheet the day I booked it. I read for one part, booked a different part. And I showed up to set completely green, no idea what I was doing. There was an actor named Jonathan Spencer who had also booked the same episode. He's one of those working actors that just does stuff all the time. He was so kind to me because I held up my call sheet. We're in the shuttle heading from base camp to set, and I don't know what anything means. I don't know what like SWF, for anyone listening that doesn't know, start, work, finish is what that means. It's basically like a call sheet is the guide that tells everybody what you're shooting that day, who's shooting, you know, what pages, what scenes we're doing. And it's just your little, I don't know, how would you describe it? It's like the information page.
I just found out what an SWF was.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so like next to each actor's name.
I know generally what you're talking. I didn't know but yeah, I can see if you had like zero idea of any of that.
I had never been on a set like a professional.
Yeah, it'd be hieroglyphics. Like
that's exactly what I said. That's exactly the word I used. It was like reading hieroglyphics. I was like, I don't know what any of this means. And I feel like Jonathan could have so easily been like, who let this nobody onto this set? She doesn't even know how to read a call sheet. How did she get here? I've been doing this for years. I've worked my butt off. You know, knowing now, since then, I've done thousands of auditions and booked a small handful of network roles, which is honestly more than most of my friends who are all auditioning as much, if not more than I am. So looking back on that moment, I have such a new perspective on that whole entire thing. And Jonathan, he was so gracious. He also was very sweet because he had been in the game for a while. And I remember he said to me that day, he was like, no, it's kind of cute that you don't know like what it is. It reminds me of my first time booking a co-star role, you know, my first booking. And I didn't really know where to go or what I was supposed to do either. And we do take those things for granted. And man, I hope I one day get to the point where I'm just booking so much that I take it for granted every time. But I always think back to that story because I just know that if I had had a bad attitude about not getting to do the role I wanted in the parade, or if I hadn't worked as hard to make myself stand out in what I was doing, I don't know if I ever would have met Billy and Cherie. And, you know, I called them my Hollywood fairy godparents for a long time. They were so supportive. And my first three, I only have 4 network roles, and they've helped me get my auditions for the first 3 of the 4 of them. Honestly, getting my 4th one was really nice because I got it completely on my own. And so it kind of made me feel like any of that imposter syndrome I was feeling of like, well, I'm only getting these roles because Billy and Tree are helping me. I'm not actually talented. It kind of went away when I got this 4th one on my own. So
you have such a magical story. Like I'm like so Disneyed out right now. Like,
there's like pixie dust floating around the room. Where did this come from? I just
realized I should have had like a Mickey. I didn't even think of this. I got Mickey Mouse ears over there right now.
Oh, we could have.
I got 2 sets of them too.
It's not too late for Eric to put them on though.
Oh.
Yeah, let's put them on the bear.
Wow.
I thought Eric was gonna put it on. I was gonna.
Right, thank you. Well, okay. It was good in theory.
It's still good. Oh, here. We'll just put
if you could put
Coca-Cola, Coke Zero behind.
Let's put the Coke Zero right by the Disneyland hat.
Funny enough, I think Coke is the official partner for Disneyland. Like if you get soda in the park, I'm pretty sure it's Coca-Cola products.
Probably. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, it's one of the biggest brands in the world, arguably, if not the biggest.
That is true. Yeah.
Classic,
man.
Now, I'm not going into total left field here, but I just
go into left field.
And you can skip this. You can go, hey, we're not going there. Like, do you believe in like divine intervention? And the reason why I bring that up is just because your story, like it's a good reminder to hear stories like this because you don't know it at the time, right? Like you don't know, like even at the time we're like, well, why the heck is this happening? Or why is this? But then you look back and you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
If that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have met this person. And then this wouldn't have happened. So I was just curious maybe to get your perspective on.
I absolutely do. I mean, I think certain things, I don't want to say nothing's in our control, but I do believe that we are capable of manifesting certain things. And whatever degree you want to look at that at is fine. I mean, if you want to think manifestation as a magical thing that happens and it's just divine and unexplainable, that's one thing. Or if you want to look at it a little more logically and go, well, when I'm really focusing on what I want, I'm open to noticing the opportunities when they come. You know, if I'm thinking about the color red, now I'm going to see all the red things in the room. Whereas before, if I'm just kind of aimlessly wandering, I couldn't even tell you which colors are in front of me. So regardless of how you look at it, I think there is power in knowing what you want to do and just not being afraid to say yes to the opportunities that do come your way because you don't know where they're going to lead. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no. Have you read the book, The Celestine Prophecy?
Mm-mm. Sales team prophecy?
It's either Celestine or Celestian. I've heard it pronounced
gotcha.
both ways.
Celestian prophecy. Okay.
Do you read a lot of books?
Here and there. I go
Here
through
and there?
phases where I read all the time and phases where I never do.
Yeah. Well, you might be
But
leaving with one tonight. It's similar to what you just said. Like the things, God, the universe is always speaking to you, but you have to be aware of it. Like opportunities are going by you all the time, but it's until you're like in tune and really paying attention do you recognize it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just hearing your story really solidifies that.
That resonates.
It
That
reminds that.
definitely resonates. Yeah, I mean, my whole life, hindsight's always 20/20, right? It's
Right.
so much easier to look back and connect the dots. It's impossible to do it the other way around. But I think if you sit and look at that enough, there have been times in my life, like for example, last year I had probably the hardest year I've had as an adult so far. But I can even kind of look back at the year and look at how one bad thing happened, one stressful thing and another stressful thing. And then at that point, my mindset was just so wrecked. And the whole rest of the year, it just kind of spiraled into a little bit of a storm cloud. And this year, I mean, January has been really nice to kind of hit the reset button. And I don't know, I don't want to get my hopes up, but I'm feeling good so far. Like I'm feeling optimistic, and this is actually very therapeutic. I have to say.
I told you, man. Like when you get off that hot seat, you feel great. Everybody
Eric's witnessed
does.
some stuff.
I've seen some people that are so like guarded, and they come in here, and by like a half hour in, they're like a little child again, just sharing, and they're so lit up, and then right at the end, they just put their guard back up and walk out the door.
It's really cool. It's honestly so special, Sam, that you like offer this space to think out loud. And as I'm telling these stories that are stories I used to tell all the time because they were more fresh, but it's been years now since some of these things happened that we've talked about tonight. And to kind of like relive it and remember, it is like reinvigorating. I'm going, oh wow, yeah, like I got to get back to where 20-year-old Brittnee was at. She was on fire. She believed she was unstoppable, and it's cool to be reminded of that. We are unstoppable.
Yeah, you're right about that 20s energy. Like it's a lot of it's what's the word I used to call blind optimism.
Totally.
Naivety, yeah.
Yeah, you haven't had enough rejection yet to be jaded and guarded.
Yeah, but we've had this talk, like Eric and I, because we're all a similar age, and it's like you look at they're not kids, but the younger ones that are like their mid 20s, 25, 26. It's like I can do anything. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
And then you get about another decade in life, just reality hitting you and grown-up stuff, but you're right, that fire's there still. It's a matter of you. Do you want to? It may have gotten dimmer, but do you want to relight it? Do you want to turn it up? It's still there if you choose for it to be. It's using the theme of Disney and all that. It's like, really, I love Peter Pan. That's probably one of my favorite, just because like the concept of never grow up mentality.
Totally. Yeah, we should all be striving for Neverland in our lives. I love that. Imagination, youth, magic. I like that a lot.
Well, and as we get older now too, I don't know how you guys feel, but like I feel now, while we still have the energy, like we got to take care of yourself, but now we have the brain.
Yes.
If I wish I could take this brain and move it into my 25, 26-year-old self, I swear to you.
What's that phrase? Youth is wasted on the young or something. It's that like wisdom. Like we're too dumb when we're young to know what to do with our youth.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like we're in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Because you still have some of that,
Mhm.
but then you're like, oh, now you have experience, you have knowledge, you have wisdom, you have more intelligence. It's just a different. There's so many days I do think I don't regret anything, but I'm like, man, if I could just take a time machine back to when I was in college or like early Vegas years and just pull myself aside and be like, hey, you're doing some stuff right, but XYZ, like do this and you'll be in a lot better position.
What do you
But,
mean by early Vegas years?
oh yeah. So after college, shortly after college, I lived in Tucson a year and then I moved to Las Vegas. I was in Vegas like 7.5 years.
Oh wow, 7.5 years.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like my own, like how you have Disney
Mhm.
and that whole upbringing of entertainment. I was like Vegas.
Wow. And
For,
were you working in entertainment in Vegas?
I was being entertained in Vegas. I'm sorry.
No.
I was thinking because I just had like this flashback and rush of like I was doing like music. I was big into music back in the Vegas days with a couple guys, and then I got into interviewing and video production, and then I got into acting toward the tail end of Vegas. Got into acting class there, and my acting shout out to Daryl in Las Vegas.
Hey, Daryl.
Every single class, he would just talk about this place called Playhouse West. Every single class. And I'm like, what is he talking about? And he just said, it's the Marines. It's the best of the best. So then when I had the opportunity to come here, initially, my brother and I both moved out here. He was in Vegas too. He moved back to Vegas. But Daryl looked at me and he goes, well, you know you're going to Playhouse West, right? This place right across the street here. Little did I know that I would end up living over it. It's so crazy. But yeah, again, 2020, right?
It's
you look
so
back,
cool.
like, I couldn't have done this if I would have. It just had to happen how
Mhm.
it happened. So, yeah, Vegas gave me that taste, because being on the strip all the time and just all the shows and stuff that
So
are there.
vibrant
And the
there.
shows are so good there.
Mhm.
And I've actually, as recently, even after I had moved out of there, went to some shows. They're so good.
Yeah.
They're expensive.
They are. They are. I know I don't know what I would do in Vegas in terms of, I mean, obviously they have stilt walkers in Vegas, but it's a lot of singing and dancing, all the shows, but I would love to do a residency in Vegas. I think that would
Yeah.
be so fun, but
Maybe your company will one day.
maybe.
Well, I
Why
was going to
not?
ask you,
Why not?
with your company, who's like the target customer for something like that? Is it someone that's just throwing a party and they want to have cool stuff around, or is it a bunch of different things or opportunities, corporate events, stuff like that?
All of the above.
Yeah.
To be 100% honest, I think I'm still kind of dialing where I want it to fall, because when I've filmed some of our content, that's my favorite thing to do, is to kind of blend my love of acting for film and TV and my live performance and make it one. I could actually see myself directing music videos. That's like a route I could really see myself taking, because I love creative storytelling. That's not necessarily like a linear written piece, if that makes any sense, but visual, like film. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
You're making perfect sense.
thank you for translating my thoughts. But right now, I mean, I've been performing live events for years now, ever since I learned stilt walking, pretty much. Aside from theme parks, that's my bread and butter, is performing stilts and characters at live events, corporate events, special events. And so that is what I would say our aim is right now. We just got to create a show for an award show this past fall, and that was really cool. It was it was kind of like the Oscars of real estate in Southern California, if you will. It was like this big award ceremony in Anaheim, and we got to create a little show for the opening number of this award ceremony. And that was very cool. We had stilt walkers, skaters, and dancers for that. So I guess that kind of thing is what we're working on right now. Corporate events, anybody with a budget big enough to pay a bunch of specialty performers and choreographers and directors to
And it's out
create
there.
a show. It is out there.
And the beauty is where you're at in Southern Cal, it's so dense out here. There's so many companies, so many businesses. It's endless.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I just think it's so cool. Like now that I'm putting all the pieces together of your story, like seeing what you evolved into with this, it's a really neat story. It's really,
Thank
really cool. And you
you.
are
It's
an
cool to
actor.
look
Let's
back.
not forget. I know you mentioned it earlier, but I met you at Playhouse West.
Mhm.
And I remember specifically, this is when I had rejoined and I jumped into Wolf's class for like a month. And you were in that class at the time. I can't remember. I don't know how many scenes you were doing. You were doing at least two. At least two. Maybe where you were working on three. I can't remember. You were
Something like that. I remember being stressed out.
But I just remember being extremely impressed with the level of work that you did in every single scene.
Thank you.
Because I mean, just doing one scene very well is, Eric knows it's difficult. A lot of work goes into it. And I just remember being very impressed. I think one of the scenes was the war one,
Oh,
Homefront.
with Ford.
Yeah,
Right?
that was a good one. Yeah.
And Ford, I mean, getting to work with Ford is just what a delight.
Oh, it's a gift. I got to do a one act with him. It was incredible.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
gives it his all. He leaves everything out there,
Ford is not human, nor is he Ford is just
What
Ford.
is Ford?
Ford is
just
Ford.
It's so true. It's so true. He is, I mean, when I think of somebody who is just truly an artist for the sake of loving art, loving to create, wanting to experience life in every facet to its most enriching, deepest level, like that is Ford. I don't know anybody that can connect artistically like he can in any way, musically, artistically, acting.
He has the most ability to express art at the highest level in a variety of forms.
That is beautifully put.
You know what I mean? Like he can write, he can do poetry, he can play any instrument. He's a great actor. He does it all in his one.
He's captivating.
If you ever catch his original one-man shows too, I mean, it's unlike.
I've heard they're amazing.
Yeah, it's like you go to it, and every time I go to one of his shows, I'm like, well, there's no way he'll top that. And then like whenever he comes out with this new material, I'm like, well, there's no way he's gonna top that. So shout out to Ford Fanter.
Shout out to Ford. Aw.
So as far as future for you artistically, obviously you have this company, you're gonna keep doing that and this acting, just continuously working on that while you're building the company at the same time.
Yeah.
I know you make films too.
Yeah, I just started taking Chris Leiby's film lab at Playhouse West, the Hollywood Film Lab. And I'm really inspired already. We're only a few weeks into that, but it's so nice to be getting to learn the technical side of things because there's a lot that I want to do. And it's not that I definitely know other filmmakers who I could ask for help, but I feel helpless when I don't know anything about the technical side and I want to make something and I just have to rely on someone else to be willing to help when I don't have a budget. You know what I mean? It's one thing if I had all the money in the world and I could just hire everyone and say, make this, please, thank you. But I'm not there yet. And so to be able to make things myself or at least know enough of what I can do and what I need to bring in other people to do is going to be really helpful. Just being able to hold my own in a conversation about the technical aspects of filmmaking and honestly just getting a new perspective on things that I already know just from being on sets, but hearing it explained in a different way or kind of reinforcing things or elaborating on things that I didn't understand fully that I'm finally starting to really get. So I'm excited. I'm excited to make some films this year. I am going to see what happens with Chaotic Motion and just keep marketing that, trying to book some shows. And I guess kind of the theme of this whole conversation is just know ultimately that I want to be performing and really hone in on what I love doing and trust that the universe is going to align and just continue bringing opportunities.
I love that. I'm thinking what the title of this is going to be. It's going to be something like that. It's going to be something cosmic.
I love it.
Of some kind.
Yeah.
No, we got a little more time here. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about it. Anything. We can go a completely different direction. We can stay here.
Trying to think.
Do you go back home much?
It depends. It depends. Last year I went home more in 1 year than I ever have since I moved away, but it was for unfortunate circumstances. We lost grandfather. He had
I'm
a
sorry to hear that.
stroke earlier in the year, so I got to say goodbye to him. I got to see him before he passed. And then after he passed away, we all got together and drove up to the mountains, spread his ashes. It was actually really, really nice to do that all as a family. And then just kind of went back a couple more times to just deal with family stuff and working on that. Keep hitting this. Working on the house and things like that. But it just depends. Like, you know, working in theme parks and the event industry makes it tricky to go home for holidays. So this last year was actually the first time since I moved away in 2007 that I was home for Thanksgiving. So that was awesome, getting to actually be in Seattle with family, doing the whole Thanksgiving thing. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, what? I'm totally spacing. You have a drone.
Oh yeah, we were supposed to talk about that.
Yeah, you have like an Instagram account for it. And I
That's
know
right.
you said Seattle. I remember that awesome drone shot you got looking over the city.
That's
Yeah, duh. Yeah, tell me about that one because that came out of left field. Like that was you're really good at it too. It's
Thank
really
you.
cool stuff.
I will say, like flying a drone, what I've learned is that on one hand, it's really difficult because if you want to do anything fancy, any fancy maneuvers, it's kind of like learning the pat your head, rub your stomach, motion. It can be a little confusing. However, if you're just doing something gentle with the drone, it does all the work for you. I mean, the cameras are so nice and the gimbal that's built in is just so steady. So if you're shooting something pretty, it's almost impossible not to get a gorgeous shot. What I hope to learn and what I want to keep practicing is how to do the really cool, swooping shots, anything with any sort of a pattern other than just going up and going down. But I mean, having a drone is awesome. And that's part of the reason I think that gosh, there's so much.
My first question
Pandora's
with that,
box.
yeah, what inspired you to get that? Like what gave you, I think I'm going to buy a drone and just start filming.
I think that I was kind of having a crossroad, quarter life crisis, if you will, midlife crisis. How old am I? In just, artistically what I was doing and feeling like I was getting a little burnt out with acting. I was feeling like hitting that rut of, audition. It had been a while since I had booked anything, and I was really starting to get down on myself and feeling a little bit like I was working so hard on all my scenes for class. Some of the stuff that we do in class is heavy. And I mean, there's a reason why some of the best actors of all time have gone through the worst kind of depression, because I think when you're really immersing yourself in something, you can kind of take on that heaviness if you're not careful, if you don't have a balance. And I realized that I wasn't really balancing. I was just so focused on wanting to, be the best and put all of my emotion into what I was feeling. And then I wasn't like countering that with fun activities outside of acting. So, I took a little step back. I was also moving at the time and dealing with family stuff all year last year. And I kept seeing during my doom scrolling on Instagram these beautiful drone shots. And I love watching travel videos. I think, as someone, a self-proclaimed girl with no backup plan, if I were to have a quote unquote backup plan, I would love to travel for a living, whether it's a travel blogger or I'm taking my drone to beautiful places and getting to film these beautiful places and get paid to do it. I think that would be awesome. It's still in the creative field. And I don't even know exactly what got me to pull the trigger. I certainly didn't have the money to buy this drone. I put it on a credit card, but I just told myself, like, I'll feel better if I have something that I can do by myself, that I'm in control of. I think that up until this point, everything that I had done in life had always been someone else's idea. Even acting and performing. My mom was a performer, an artist, and so she just kind of raised me to be that way. Not to say I didn't want to do it. I've always loved doing it. I've never wanted to do anything else. But stilt walking, someone else suggested that I do it. So many of the things that I'm into, somebody else got me into. And I think when I realized I was intrigued by drone flying, it also occurred to me that it was my idea to do it. And I just kind of wanted to be in control. So I got the drone and I started learning to fly the drone. And the first time I ever flew it actually was up in Seattle. I saved it for Seattle. I waited until I was in Seattle to fly it for the first time because I wanted it to be special. And it was really cool. I was with my mom and my aunt and my brother and the field where I went to middle school. And we flew up and over Queen Anne and saw the Space Needle. And I was just hooked. I mean, you do it once and you see how beautiful the footage is and kind of shaky at first. My first few videos, you can kind of see the little stutters as I'm moving the little knobs and trying to get the hang of it. But it's therapeutic. It gets you outside. It gets me going to beautiful places that I haven't been, even just around LA. Just getting outside and seeing parks in the area that I've lived in driving distance from for how many years now and just never gone. So it's kind of like having a dog, a dog gets you out of the house. My drone gets me out of the house, but it's really cool. And I hope to use it for filmmaking. I hope to.
It's an investment.
Yeah, it's an investment. Yeah. Yeah, and it's nice because I can use it for filmmaking and also for social media. I can just make cool content for social media for fun, or I can actually use it for a beautiful establishing shot in a film that I write or that any of my friends write. Just saying.
Or even, for your event company over there.
Totally, yeah.
Get cool promo shots.
Yeah,
stuff
exactly.
like that.
Yeah. Some cool aerial shots of formations, dancers dancing around in cool formations. Yeah, I've thought about that too. That'd be so fun. So it'll hopefully be something that leads to cool opportunities, but if nothing else, it is genuinely a hobby that is just for me that I really enjoy.
Man, I feel you on the burnt out thing. Like, I think sometimes, I don't know, it's like, I don't want to quote him directly, but Ford and I have talked. I think I asked Ford this on one of the times he's come on. Everything comes in phases, right? Like there'll be phases where I just gotta write. I gotta write. There'll be phases where you want to act. There'll be phases when you maybe do music, any XYZ. And it's like, I think as an artist, you have to listen to that intuition sometimes. Like, what am I getting pulled toward?
Yeah.
Or, this energy's stagnant over here. Let me, not continue to focus on something, but I think it's good to spread that out a little bit. And it's going to eventually come back to the acting. And
absolutely.
Everything feeds off each other.
It does. Even taking this film lab as, we have this assignment to pitch a 1-minute film. And man, I was racking my brain for hours trying to think of what I was going to pitch that falls into the parameters of the assignment. And the bad news was it took me forever to come up with an idea that I could actually pitch for the assignment. But the good news is I thought of all these other ideas that maybe weren't right for this assignment, but they were things that either I'm excited to develop and make in the future, or it got me kind of back in my acting mindset. I started thinking about these characters and stories that I would want to tell because I, Brittnee, would want to tell them. And it's been a little while since I felt that way. So exactly, just, to add on to what you were just saying, it's nice to feel that. It's nice to feel one area of my art inspiring another area, and hopefully they can come together and support each other. So
I also love your mentality of there's no plan B.
You can't have
Like I remember
plan
Will
B.
Smith said one time in an interview, he's like, well, there can't be a plan B because that takes away from plan A.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean,
Hey, Will Smith is not a bad guy to be in company with.
or it goes to, the jump in the net will appear
Sure.
type
Yeah.
of mentality. And it sounds like that's really what you've done. And it's,
Thank you. I try, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard. Eric, where are you at? It's hard. We all know it's hard. And I think the older we get, the harder it becomes because our ratio of success to I'm not going to say failure, but non-success, like the ratio just the gap is getting bigger, there are more times I have not gotten opportunities now than times that I have, compared to when I was just fresh out of high school and started working in parades and characters at Disneyland. You know what I mean? Like back then, things weren't working out here and there, but overall it was all exciting and new and fresh. And now, flash forward to my mid 30s and it's a different story. And I'm looking in the mirror and I'm seeing wrinkles and I'm comparing myself to everyone's filters on Instagram and the magazine covers. And that whole thing is an entirely other topic that we could devote an entire episode to.
That'll have to be part 2. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just like, you get to this point and you really have to be the one in charge of your mindset.
Wow. Wow. See, this is what happens on this. It's like we're winding down a little bit and then you say something like that. No, I and Eric and I have joked around. Like I think another name for this podcast could probably be like Confessions of the Mid-30s Artist or whatever.
Seriously.
Because it's like we said earlier, it's fun and games when you in that youthful energy, but the reality really hits when you get to I'm 36. I'll be 37 here very soon. And the reality of, okay, it's cool what you're doing, but what are you going to keep doing this? And I'm like, but I'm just like, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I've just accepted it. This is what society in the world makes you feel like you're falling behind if you don't have X, Y, Z, when really it's how many people are doing that and are actually happy. And in terms of like mortality, yeah, the grays are coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm actually embracing it at this point. I'm like, none of us are going to live forever. So it's like, what do you want to do with your time?
Yep.
While you're here, how do you want to spend it?
That's how we ought to be reframing it and thinking about the grays as a blessing, right? Because not everybody makes it to gray hair. So we're still here. We're still trying. We're still going for that goal. So
in the social media world, it's just so, and I actually, just a tip for anybody, no one has to take this advice. I have switched my phone to grayscale. So everything's black and white.
Oh, I didn't
and
know
it
you
makes
could do
it
that.
less. Yes, it makes it less addictive. You eventually get used to it, and you'll still open the apps. But like when I'm seeing, I liked how you said doom scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not as pulled in as much to it. So it's actually been helpful instead of just bright colors constantly, bright shiny objects.
I think I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah, try it out. It's interesting.
Yeah, because I keep telling myself I'm going to take a break, and the next thing I know, that there's.
Are you talking about like the nighttime mode? Is that what you're talking about?
No, you go to, if you're on your. Does everyone have iPhone?
Yeah, you mean everything's black,
and white.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you go to, and I learned this from a podcast. You go to nope, not that one.
That's so.
It's
cool.
funny, like you only know it by just.
That might be a new thing then.
You go to accessibility in your settings. You go to display and text size, and then you go to hit color filters, and then it'll give you options: red, green filter, red, filter, grayscale. You hit grayscale, and it turns everything to black and white. You do adjust to it. You do get used to it, so that whole like keeping you away from it kind of wears off a little bit. But I switched mine back to color, and I'm like, whoa. You didn't realize what you were looking at until you take that away for a while. I'm like, yeah, that can't be good for my eyes.
I'm going to leave it like that for a little bit.
I almost want to do one of the fun colors. I might do like rose tinted or something.
Yeah.
Go.
Eric's just determined to keep looking through his rose-colored glasses.
How you feeling, brother, in 2024 so far?
I'm feeling great.
Yeah? You look good, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do feel great. I feel pretty motivated. Kind of, I guess, piggybacking off what you were talking about, Brittnee, like I'm really trying to focus on I knew you were going to do that. I'm really focused on the outside things outside of the film industry. Like you were saying, like staying inspired by having other areas of interest and things that you can do just for fun and kind of fill your cup that way. So I've been really trying to lean into that, which is tough because a lot of times, like, we know that there's a little bit of a time crunch, gun to head, and it can be tough to like be like, oh, you know what? Today I'm just gonna do some fun stuff. I'm gonna like redecorate my living room or my patio or whatever, and I'm gonna dick around with my latte machine or my espresso machine and like learn how to actually use it and just I don't know, do fun stuff and just allow yourself to just go on walks with friends instead of being like, oh, I need to be reaching out to this person and this person to like further my career. Yeah, it's fucking all bullshit anyway.
It's all bullshit.
So might as well start enjoying the ride a little more now. And I think that's part of something you figure out as you get older and you just bang your head against the wall so many times. You're like, okay, I need to change some things up. So that's what this year's about. And then I do have some rose-colored, heart-shaped sunglasses, by the way, that someone gave me for fun. I was like, I'm never gonna wear these, but you put them on, and it's just fun. And everything is bright and red and just cool. And you're like, dude, you know what? This is kind of cool to put on 5 minutes while you're driving and just recharge a little bit. So I'm all about it. So laugh if you will.
No, I love it.
Should wear him for the next episode. Let me tell you about this guy real guys. I've gotten to know him better. He's inspired me, like we've been talking about, to like have an actual life.
Mm-hmm.
Like things you actually do outside of your, not everything you do has to be a project. And I lived that way for a long time. Like, oh, I gotta be working on this. I gotta be doing this. Cause if not, what are you doing with, but it's like, no, maybe find some different stuff.
Yeah.
You like to do.
I had a similar experience with Eric because Eric, I remember you one time saying something along the lines of how you felt like you were getting a false sense of success by being in class.
Yeah.
And that resonates with me because sometimes I feel like, you know, I am showing up to class and I'm really proud of the work I'm doing and I know I'm working hard, but at the end of the day, look at my resume. I mean, what do I have to show for it? Not to say that it isn't important to be doing the work that we do in class, but you have to remind yourself that you still have to be doing things outside of class too.
Right.
And I think about that quote all the time.
Well,
I think about that.
That's cool.
No. I think
Good.
Yeah. I'm just like picturing like my little shoulder,
Oh,
Eric.
no.
Just no, but I mean, I think that we do have to have a well-rounded life in order to be the best artists that we can be. So
I got a Mr. Carnegie down the before COVID hit, and I was in his Thursday night class. Eric Charles Jorgensen, Eric next door was in that class too. He said something that really similar to the vein of what you're talking about. He said the most. I can't remember if I don't want to quote him directly, but I'm paraphrasing. He either said the most interesting actors or some of the best actors were the people that led the most interesting lives. He's like, they read the most interesting books. They went to interesting museums. They were about trying different foods, different culture. Like they were just interesting people.
Right. That's what makes you interesting is being interested.
mm-hmm.
So, and it's like, so you can't just go do that stuff like, oh, I got to be a better artist, so I'm going to go to these museums, which is something that like would cross through my mind. But it's like, no, man, what would you actually want to do today? Like, what's something ridiculous, like something fun and like, I keep going back to my latte game. It's like, I never even drank coffee till a year ago. Now I'm like all fucking in on espresso
so
and like,
cool.
Here's a freaking machine. Like
yeah,
a real
I bought
machine.
one from
want
Italy,
one.
like a real nice one. And I'm like learning how to do the latte art and stuff like that. I mean, it looks horrible right now, but it's gonna be
gotta
good.
start somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm stoked. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Well, yeah, like just little
awesome.
things like that. I think he's spot on. Like people like Johnny Depp, one of my favorite actors. You know, he could tell you any type of insect there is. He knows them all.
Really?
Like he has an interest in insects.
I never heard of that.
So what it is he has like or anybody, it's like if you have a faith in yourself that things are going to work out. So you're like, I can still live life. Like I don't need to be grinding. It's like, no, life's going to work itself out because I'm badass. I'm good at what I do. And you know, the universe takes care of me, so I can still enjoy it. So it's really a faith thing when you think about it. It's like that allows you to not, I don't like the word let off the gas, but it allows you to like take a breath and try something different. And you still have faith that the shit that you need to get done will still get done. Like, obviously it's a balance. You can't just be like dicking around constantly, but like, I think there is a very fine balance, and it's very advantageous to have those interests and hobbies and just be.
Dude, This is some fire stuff happening toward the
Let's
end here.
go.
Fire
This is-
stuff.
I needed to hear all of this.
Me
This is
too.
yeah.
Have you guys read The Artist's Way?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course you have. I
It's
figured.
over there
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
I'm just week 1 in. I just started it.
First
But
time doing it?
Mhm, first time doing
you're
it.
in for a treat.
I'm so
You're in
excited
for a
because,
treat.
the artist date, that's what it reminded
Yeah,
me of that you were
exactly.
talking about.
Yes.
Just
And you know
finding
what?
time to get out and be inspired
So
or not, I
Kathleen
guess.
had us read that book, all our students, but like when I was in I think I was like late 20s or whatever, or maybe just 30, you maybe aren't even ready for that type of stuff because you haven't quite figured out you haven't figured out how you're your own enemy yet.
Yep.
So it almost takes you, and I'm guessing Julia Cameron, who wrote that book, was probably at least in her 30s or 40s, maybe 50s. So it's like some of these things you can't even do when you're like your brain's not there yet. So like you're talking about like telling your younger self how to what to change. Like I don't even know if that type of stuff's even possible because like you're in a different place. Your mind is different.
Yep.
Your interests are different.
Yep.
You're just not on that wavelength yet.
It's funny you say that because I just got done talking to someone about, when you do recognize someone younger going through something or inexperienced in something you can tell them that the stove is hot 10,000 times. I can show you a video on why the stove is hot. They got to touch the stove because I remember I had to touch the stove. I had mentors and stuff. I would just be so frustrated with me on some things because I wanted to do it my way. And now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, they were just trying to help me out and they totally, but you have to go on that journey.
Yeah, you learn by doing.
Yeah.
The good and the bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You may have just changed the book of the episode now. It may have to be Artist's Way. I
Artist's
don't
Way.
know if I've ever made that book of the episode.
Ooh.
I gotta dig, make sure it's still over there. It's over there somewhere. But
Yeah, it's a good one.
yeah.
It's the one I'm reading now.
Well,
Just started.
that is a brilliant way to, as we get to the conclusion here, one last question. More maybe a statement I wanted to say, you working in theme parks, and just to get your perspective, I was thinking about this. You're working in an environment where some people, and I'm actually comparing this to something I think Michael Jordan said once on why he played so hard every single game, because he knew in that audience there was some kid and his dad that had saved all their money to go see him that one time. And I bet it's very similar to going to Disneyland, going to these magical theme parks where some of these parents, they may have saved all their money for a year or two to be able to take their kids to have this experience. So I was just going to get your perspective on that. And then does that motivate you to have that energy? Because you got to be on, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is very special to perform in a theme park. And especially if you are portraying a character who is someone's favorite character or, something that they grew up watching. For example, a lot of people meet the Scooby-Doo gang and they're so excited. Every generation, because, they made it in the 60s and now they're still making versions of it today. So literally every generation that comes through the park has watched Scooby-Doo. And they're just so excited to be brought into the story to talk about solving mysteries and who's behind the mask. And what's cool and what's special about performing in theme parks is that you get to invite the guests to be a part of the story. I mean, the Universal Studios theme park, the whole theme is kind of movie magic. That's what's different from Disney. It's Disney magic. It's very branded, but Universal, it's all Hollywood. And so you get to kind of invite the guests in to be in their own little stories. And it is special. And as someone who grew up and has these magical memories from going to Disneyland as a kid, I think it's really important to honor that now and to respect the fact that these families, this might be the only time they ever get to come. And they've probably waited in a really long line to get into parking. And then they had to walk really far to get to the front gate and wait in a long line there and spent all their savings and then walk in. And all the lines for all the rides are so long. So when you're interacting with them and connecting with them, if you can make that moment special and make them forget all the lame parts about waiting in line and how hot it is, if you can make that moment something magical for them, that is what they will remember. And I mean, it's true. There are so many guests that come back and write letters and thank various characters for special moments that they had. And to be able to make an impact on somebody like that is, I don't know, to reiterate, it's just very special, just very, very special.
Oh, and on that note, I'm going to give you the last word again. But before then, where can people find you? Where should they go? Social media, websites, where's the best place to get a hold of Brittnee?
If you go to my Instagram, there are links to everything there. So Brittnee Garza is my Instagram. It'll link you to Chaotic Motion, to my live shows, to the Airheaded Blonde, which is my drone page, and then my website, and all my acting reels and links and everything are on there too.
Which are really good, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You've done some really great work.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always give the guests the last word. It can be as deep or as shallow as you want it to be. It can be random. It can be what we talked about. It can be anything you want to say. Last word's yours.
Throughout this conversation, it's just brought up a lot of really good memories, and I'm so grateful for the divine opportunities that have come my way. I look forward to more in the future, and I really hope that you and Eric and everybody listening, I hope that we all have a year of wonderful opportunities. So let's just make 2024 the year of the artist, the year of our dreams. Let's make our dreams come true.
2024, year of the artist, baby.
Year
All
of the
right.
artist.
Well, Brittnee Garza, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Sam Dever. My pleasure.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Sam Dever podcast. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you watch the podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@the Sam Dever podcast.